whilst we wait for everybody to return, maybe Ben, are you guys ready with sharing your presentation on your side?
Yes, Jared, I'll just put it on.
Bello, do you have a question, or your hand just raised due to, there we go, guys, it's down.
Well, that's almost.
Yeah, actually.
Right, yes, we see your hand clearly. Awesome. All right, just want to see, I don't want to start without everyone being back. Are you guys happy? I mean, just give me a, in your reaction, on your reaction tab, just give me a thumbs up. Are you guys happy if we continue? Everybody back? Okay, there, I see a couple of them. All right, Ben, I think, yeah, then without further ado, you can go ahead. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gerard. Good morning to everyone again. Thank you for the opportunity from our side. Gerard explained, our company's name is Quip. Full name is Fire Equipment Sales and Services, Pty, trading as Quip. Yeah, we are situated in the Free State. Most commonly, we've got 5 branches. Yeah, and basically, the presentation of LEAP is the first step to getting compliance, the first step, and then after that, when all the signatures on the paper, everyone is happy, FireQuip will move into the fray. All right, let me just get here. So, all right. What I'm gonna more or less talk about is the typical day-to-day things that a company or a safety officer in the industry get involved with when a fire company gets on their premises, and they say, okay, we want to make use of a company to service. What's going on here? Sorry, just 1 second. Only that slightly. Sorry, gentlemen. Okay. Yeah, I'll just try and continue. So basically what happens is if a company, if your equipment are due for service and you want to get somebody to come and service your handheld equipment or your smoke detection system or your sprinkler system, or even the smoke ventilation system, who do you call and how do you know if these people are accredited or not? Yeah, so through the course of the presentation, I'll give you links and websites you can go have a look at, because it's imperative that you make use of companies that are accredited with all the required standards and organizations and certification bodies. Yeah, what the typical SANS 1475 company can offer you, is servicing fire equipment, extinguishers, hydrants. They should have mobile units that they can service out of. And then there's more specialized companies that will supply you services of, fire suppression, fire detection systems, and CO2 systems. And then, add-ons are fire protective clothing and signage and stuff they can all supply you with. All right, the regulating bodies in the industry. These are the regulating bodies in the industry that are the most, involved, in our opinion. The first thing that I'm just going to explain to you, the guys that are in the industry currently is SHEQ CC Fire, that's for handheld fire equipment, the FTIA, Fire Detection Industry Association, and then FSIB and ASIP. Most of the insurance companies and clients would have heard these names before. Just who they are. SHEQ CC are the South African Qualification Certification Committee. selected body established to ensure the individuals working within the sector of the fire industry had the appropriate competence, the training, qualifications, experience in the compliance with SANS 1475, portable fire extinguishers, and then they say detection and all the other relevant information. So basically, the SHEQ has been mandated by the Department of Labour to regulate the technicians in the field. So I'll show everyone a bit later on where you can go and see if a technician and the company are registered. And this is imperative to have compliance on your side, because if a non-accredited, or as we call them in the industry, fly-by-nights come and service your fire equipment, it will not be compliant and you'll have to reservice it and pay for it again. So this is imperative that your clients, especially the insurance people that are linked in, should advise as far as possible their clients to make use of accredited companies and technicians to service the equipment in the industry. Okay.
Ben,
So
sorry, just to chip
Yes,
in there
Gerard.
with you. So on the SHEQ, something just to note, it's a mistake that I've previously made. So there are two SHEQs that I'm familiar with. The one is fire and the one is gas. So
Yes.
please don't confuse the two. They're not the same body. So if you're looking at verifying the firefighting equipment technicians and companies, then please Google SHEQ fire, as the gas one might also pop up, and then you're not going to be successful in researching that.
Yes, good point, Gerard. And it might cause confusion because, especially when you come to gas suppression, people get confused where they put in SHEQ gas to go and look for a technician, but they will only find them on that SHEQ fire, as that's full part of that division. There's the website, www.shqccfire.co.za. Just a quick comment. I'm also on the committee of SHEQ Fire, and specifically the disciplinary committee, and we work with fly-by-nights and technicians and companies taking chances, servicing legally on a weekly basis, where customers can report technicians and companies servicing legally, or even if you're not satisfied with the service that's been rendered, and that if the executive committee find this this is a bona fide case behind it, then they will refer it to us to hold a disciplinary hearing, and these people either via Zoom or in person will be held. A hearing will be held, and the sentences or the whatever what's the straf? Sorry.
The outcome
the outcome can be either expulsion for life, or it can be a very huge fine, or even they have to retrain. And the retraining of a SHEQ CC 1475 technician is a 5-day course, and it can just the course can be about 6,000 rand. So they try and it's quite a harsh sentence or outcome that can be laid upon them if they're found guilty. So most of the people try and comply to avoid these kind of sentencing. The reason for this is due to the legislative requirements and the strict guidance by the DL on this. We have to be strict. Okay, then the second part is the FDIA. The purpose of the FDIA is to uplift the quality and professionalism within the industry through training and by informing its members, consulting engineers and specifiers of changes in technologies within and affecting the industry using the website. So basically, you can also go on the FDIA website if you want to. We get it more often now if there's a tender or invitation to do quotations. The customers and a lot of them are required or enforced by the insurance companies to make use of FDIA registered companies to do the quotation. Hence the reason is only they regulate the industry as far as possible. If you're a member of them, they do twice yearly inspection on sites, and they are extremely strict on the quality and the specifications, but I'll let Marius, the specialist in this, advise a bit later on certain aspects of that. As well as the second point is ASIP. Most of the insurance companies will know the name ASIP. ASIP they specialize in the sprinkler industry, and they also regulate the sprinkler industry. And if you want to become an ASIP approved installer or serviceman, you need to register with them. And if the insurance require or the client require ASIP approved system, they can also just visit www.asip.co.za to see approved installing companies or servicing companies, or pump room servicing companies. There's quite a big spectrum on that. Any questions so far on that, or can we continue?
I think we can continue. Thanks, Ben.
Okay, FSIB is the third-party inspectorate for fire detection alarm systems. What basically happen is sometimes the insurance companies require that after the installation has been done, and especially if the company is not FDI approved, they might require the company to get FSIB third-party inspectorate to inspect the installation and to see if it complies with the standards, and if it can be signed off as an approved fire detection and alarm system. Their website is also there, www.fsib.co.za. And the reason at the bottom is why the third-party inspectorate ensure that the end user uses competent suppliers and installers that meets their specification needs. Looking at that, the equipment, Marius can elaborate on that a bit later. The equipment is just as important as the installation. We need to use approved equipment and installers, otherwise the whole system, if you use, say for instance, approved equipment but not approved installers, or installation company, the system will not be approved. So the whole package need to be approved and comply to legislation. Yes, so yeah, there's a sentence that getting it wrong or taking the cheap option can be very costly through fines, legal costs, loss of property, loss of business, or your insurer refusing to pay out the fire damage. What sometimes happens is people are getting blindfolded and lied, and they say this is an approved system, and they don't control it or inspect it, and the system is installed, or the fire company service the equipment, and there's a fire, and the first thing that the insurance company asks is give me your fire compliance certificate, give me your service certificate, give me your installation certificate from smoke detection, and all these documents form part of a file that the insurance company need to look at to see if the whole system is compliant, and that can easily lead to repudiation of a claim. Please, I'm not working for the insurance company. I'm just mentioning all this because that's what we see in the industry. Is at the end of the day, the people go for the cheap option, and then they get extremely disappointed when the insurance have issues with that. Okay, know your firefighting company and technician. The certification bodies, currently there's 3 in South Africa, is the BSI, SACAS, and SABS. If you a 1475 company, you need to be registered with one of them. Say for instance, we are currently with SABS. I'll give examples of it now. And ISO is International Organization for Standardization. The ISO 9001 is not compulsory, but highly recommended. They just give the client a little bit of insurance that the quality of the company that's installing the equipment is up to standard. So SABS is mandated to develop, promote, and maintain South African national standards, the SANS, promote quality in connection with commodities, products, and services. So services where we fall in, as well as the products. All the equipment that we install or sell, the fire equipment, the fire extinguishers, hose reels, hydrants, everything need to comply to the SANS codes. There's different codes for that. I'm not going to go into that, but you're more than welcome to contact us if you're not sure. Currently, excuse me, in the industry, there's a lot of illegal fire extinguishers that goes around. That's been installed in a timeline when they didn't have all the SABS approvals, and these equipment unfortunately need to be replaced. They cannot be serviced by the 1475 company, and you'll find it in the industry where you get to a site and you get all these illegal extinguishers, and so for instance hose reels, where a fire company, well, approved fire company might say, listen, we are walking away, we're not allowed to service it, you need to replace it. And then the client goes for the cheaper option where the fly-by-night comes in and says, yes, we'll service it, without, they knowing all the repercussions in that. And this just a snowball effect to problems that the customer will later on have to defend. The customer will not be able to come around and say, I did not know, because this is all over, websites and internet, and they'll actually have to inform themselves about certain requirements and legislation. And that's why, the SANS codes also say that it always comes down to the client. The client needs to, or the owner of the building, can maybe just inform on that. The requirements and the legal responsibility comes down to the owner of the building to make sure that his servicing company or the equipment he install is compliant. Okay, ISO 9001 is just a quality management system that is preferred, but it's not mandatory. It just give you that your systems are correct. BSI and SACAs are, they're certification bodies. If any one of those, if a company pitch up and they want to service, and they can show proof that they're registered with any of those three, the SACAs, BSI, or SABS, you will be, you can freely, communicate with them and use them as your servicing company. What I'll explain a bit later, when you go into the SHEQ website and you will find a accredited technician, the only reason that technician will be registered is if it goes back to, you'll be registered, the company will be registered, everyone will be registered, and the whole process will fall in line. I'll just go a bit later. Okay, just hope this is nobody's nephew or brother. But be careful who you allow access to your property, and make sure that the company accessing your property and equipment are accredited. Just a brief, I use Marius cards here just to explain to you more or less. On the right-hand side, you'll see that's SHEQ CC Fire. That is a 1475 approved card. That means that Marius van Zyl, that registration number, is approved to service your fire equipment, hose reels, hydrants, in accordance with SANS 1475. If you can see you'll see the bottom. Okay, this was loaded on before the expiry date of the cards, but the new ones have been issued. I can promise you that. So have a look at that as well. What sometimes happens is that people that card expired uses it. If it's not valid till, for instance, the cards now should say 28 February 2024, then please ask him to leave your premises, or the company must give you the updated card. On the left, you'll see the yellow card. That means that this person, M. van Zyl, is a fire detection designer. Now, that is the highest level of in smoke detection you can go. It starts with installer and wire puller, and it gets to commissioner and then designer. Designer is the highest level a person can get currently in smoke detection. And if he can show you that, then you know that the system that will be designed and installed will comply with SANS 10139. Again, please do your own homework before you just accept anyone's cards or explanation that they approved. Then different types of fire extinguishers. This was also discussed by LEAP. This is commonly known in the industry. Just something new that that's starting to become a big problem in the industry is the bottom. You'll see lithium-ion batteries ignite due to battery defects or overheating. There's a new product, Lithix, that's been brought into the country for the past 3 or 4 months. Stock availability is still a big problem. They are extremely expensive, but that is the only extinguishing medium that will extinguish a lithium-ion battery. We had, for example, in Welkom, there was a fire at the building. The lithium-ion batteries ignited. We don't know the reason why. They suspect electrical failure. And it took, I think it was 2 batteries. It took 10 5 kg CO2s and 4 DCP 9 kg extinguishers as well as foam, and they could not extinguish that 2 batteries, and they had to wait till the fire department had come in, and they had to pull it out, and it had to burn outside till it was complete with the whole, there's nothing left to burn. So that is a big problem, especially with all the solar panels and inverters that's popping out in the industry. Yeah, we suspect that this is going to become a big issue in the future. We don't know, we're not totally familiar with everything involved in the extinguishing medium, but yeah, it's important. I think it's from America, if I'm not mistaken, or Europe, I'm not exactly sure, but the availability is still a big problem. We've sold a few of them. They are extremely expensive, as I said, and mostly the customers rather walk away from it and either change the batteries or just take a chance on that. But yeah, I will, as soon as we get more information, I will distribute it to Gerard, who can distribute among everyone on this medium, so they can get more information regarding this.
Thank you for that, Ben. I think that's a huge contribution, because I think that's going to become a bigger and bigger risk on a daily basis. So I think that's fantastic. I see Stiffy's hands up as well, or raised.
Yes, Ben, thank you for raising the lithium. It's not just the lithium batteries, but we are seeing, and I've mentioned in the comments, substandard chargers being brought in. Guys installing batteries that is not made for the voltage that with the chargers, and also the what they call it, the now it's standing still, but it's not made for what they install or how they store it. So you get they put a 24-volt battery in, and all the other stuff is made for 12 volt, and that causes batteries to actually swell up and explode at one stage. I've seen it. I've been to one where the lithium-ion battery actually started melting because they put a 42-volt charger on a 12-volt battery and overcharging these things. So yeah, it's a huge problem at this stage.
Yes, thank you, Steffi. And the biggest issue is, I mean, currently it's not mandatory for a household to have extinguishers in, and Leap, you can maybe confirm that. Even though we recommend it, I mean, if you've got something in the house and there's a fire in the kitchen or a fire in a room that starts, we say in the industry, if you've got between 3 and 5 minutes to extinguish or get a fire under control, afterwards, it's becoming too big, and you need to leave it to the experts, the fire department, to take over. But yeah, it's everyone is an expert now. They're putting all kind of inverters and systems on, and getting backyard guys to just install the nephew, like the guy I showed previously. He's an expert now. They install panels and inverters, and I think in the industry and insurance, from the insurance side, it's going to become a huge challenge. That's why we brought this in. That's why this Lithix batteries are becoming a big, importer for us. But to force a guy at home who installed a 300,000 rand system with 2 batteries to go and buy extinguisher that can, that 9 liter can cost you up to, I think, 10,000 if I'm not mistaken, for one extinguisher. To go and buy that, I don't know how you're gonna force people to do that, but unless the insurance companies start to make it mandatory. But I think this is something for another forum, and maybe something the insurance guys can. It's going to become an issue in any way. So yes, just from my side, that.
Ben, sorry, there's just another question in the chat from Piet asking, how do we know what fire extinguishers are legal? I don't know, Piet, if you want to maybe elaborate on that question a bit in terms of what you mean there.
Yeah, Jared, maybe I'm just going to take an example. Some of your fire extinguishers have a stamp marked on the fire extinguisher. Some of them is clear, there's no stamped markings on the fire extinguisher. And you get so many different versions of fire extinguishers and different makes, which are we actually unsure because we have now a situation where we appointed a new fire supplier, and he came up and he said, listen, but 12 of the 18 fire extinguishers is illegal imports. And I said, how do you know? And how do we know? So basically we just want to have actual clarity what is illegal, or how the industry see what is illegal fire extinguisher, or what make, maybe, for example.
Yes, thank you. But basically the first thing is manufacturing date, serial numbers, and clearly the manufacturing of the fire extinguisher need to be approved by certification body. There's a lot of confusion in the market, and there is on the SHEQ website, I think there's some information regarding what's extinguishers are illegal and not. There was a big issue with CO2 extinguishers also regarding the product that was used to manufacture them. There was a time slot. There were certain CO2s were totally legal. What happens is, say for instance, you've got, I'll come to that point a bit later, where fire CO2s need to be pressure tested every 10 years. When you get to, and it can only be done by a hydrostatic pressure test station. Now, the hydrostatic pressure test station are totally equipped and competent, they are quite familiar with all the standards by the authorities. So what happens if an extinguisher gets into their station and it doesn't comply to all the requirements, they will fail it immediately. Now that is the pressure test station will have to give you explanation on letters, the reason for the failure, because if you send in 30 extinguishers for pressure testing and 2 count back, the other 28 failed, your customer is not going to be happy. But there is unfortunately legislation, and what I can also do is I can get all the information. I can maybe also circulate something to Gerard where you guys can have a look and see what the requirements are, what extinguishers need to comply. There was a lot of imports, and everyone imported a few years ago, imported extinguishers from all over the world, but that didn't comply to the SANS and the SABS standards. So what happens, not all of them, I mean, a lot of them did, but there were certain batches that were imported that don't comply. And as soon as a SANS 1475 company and technician gets to those premises and want to service it, I'm not at liberty now to say names of products. I'll rather get the total document to explain it to you. And they get to that and see that extinguisher is not compliant. They unfortunately have to discard it or scrap it and have to replace it with a new one. If the client say no, then that technician is not allowed to service it, because the standard says that we are not allowed to service non-approved or illegal fire extinguishers. But that's a very good question, and I think maybe I'll also, with the help of Leap of everyone, I'll write a document and I'll take some of the correspondence that's been out in the market and maybe just send something. It's difficult to say this product is illegal and this one is not. The technician need to get to the cylinder and investigate it. Say for instance, if also just a quick example, if it's say for instance a safe Quip extinguisher, or a Nitex extinguisher, and you recondition it. The access, you must get it to the standard of original manufacturing. So you need to get it back to the standard and the requirements that the Nitex, for instance, they designed it with the same label. Now that company is not there anymore. It closed down. You cannot get that instruction label anymore. You can't just slap on yours. For instance, if you're not accredited by that manufacturing company to manufacture that instruction label, and the only thing you can then do is discard the extinguisher. So it's a hot topic in the industry. I mean, the insurance companies and the clients and the customers, they don't know exactly what's going on. And the 1475 companies get information out of the market, that every second or 6 months it differs from the previous 6 months. So it's an ongoing battle, and the 1475 companies are really just trying to stay compliant. And especially with the corporate clients can easily say, let's get compliant. We're not going to get technical about this or this small extinguisher or this issue. If it's not compliant, discard it, put a new one in. But the smaller companies, that can have a big economical impact on their cash flow if you didn't budget for it. So yeah, it is a big topic. It is a concern, and I would recommend if your SANS 1475 company gets there, ask them to give you some sort of proof that this need to be discarded, or especially if it's CO2, a high pressure vessel. Like a CO2, the hydrostatics test station will also confirm that for you. I hope that answers your question, but it's a very open topic.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ben. We can continue. I don't think there are any other questions for now. We can continue.
Okay. Piet. Yeah, so I was just informed that Piet asked a question about rust. Yeah, rust is an enemy of any pressure vessel, Piet. If there's rust on the bottom or on the extinguisher, and they call it, you can have surface rust, that's very fine. I mean, if you can rub it off with a cloth or something, that's fine. But if it's deep active rust, that vessel, especially a DCP, is about 3 millimeters thick. So, for instance, if you see that rust and it is already 1.5 millimeters eaten away by the rust, that pressure, the integrity of that vessel is extremely under disrepute, and I think that will have to be discarded, especially if you do a pressure test on that, on the DCP, for instance, and you put that vessel under pressure, that will most probably burst. So yeah, it's rust is a no-no in the industry, and I know it's a big issue at the coastal areas, but yeah, it's the technician being on site have to make that call. If he feels it's not a big issue, then he needs to, he's going to stamp off of that, if I can say that in Afrikaans. He's going to be responsible for if something happens to that, because the last technician that serviced it for the next 12 months is going to be responsible for that. I hope that answers that.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Ben.
Okay. Hydrant hose reels, this was also touched on by Leap. Just for instance, just a quick explanation. A hose reel, according to SANS 10400T, is you need to install one hose reel for every 500 squares, especially for any single-story building more than 250 squares. So for instance, if you've got 2,000 squares, you need to have 4 hose reels on the premises to protect that, to protect and to comply to legislation. Hydrants is 1 hydrant for every 1,000 square meters. And then here's just the scale of, especially with the class of occupancy, you can see A1 to J4, depending on the classification. And this will most probably also come from the fire engineer and the designs and the local authority. You can determine what you need to have on your premises to be compliant. This is the minimum requirements. I mean, you can have more if you want to, but this is the minimum requirements to be compliant. Okay. Yeah, important is that all handheld equipment need to be serviced once a year. This was taken out of the Act, so that's why some of the changes were made and discarded. CO2 is also every 1 year, but you'll see that the pressure testing of foam, water, and DCPs is every 5 years, powders every 5 years, and CO2 every 10 years. Halon extinguishers are also not permitted in the market anymore. There's the Montreal Protocol that prohibits us from servicing that, and yeah, that's a big issue, especially for the aviation companies where Halon is extremely good. But there is a Halon bank where you can get in connection with, and they've got all the permission and legal authority to handle that matter. And you're not allowed to just discard it. You're not allowed to just empty a Halon extinguisher just for interest sake if you still find something in the market, because it is unfriendly for the environment and it can cause the ozone layer damage. And yeah, that was for free. Yeah, smoke detection legislation. I'm going to hand over to Marius. The reason I brought this in is, yeah, I'm sorry about that, Gerard. There was a little bit of change at 99 on the presentation. I will send that also to you and Annelien to maybe just distribute and save that. But I'm going to hand over to Marius because there were certain legislative changes in 2021 that I think might be informative to everybody. Okay,
Ben,
Marius.
sorry, just
Yes.
before we move over to Marius' side, so I can't remember. Are you guys going to just touch base on what are the documents that we need to get back from a service provider once they've serviced our fire extinguishers and firefighting equipment? I can't remember if you deal with that a bit later in your presentation.
No,
Otherwise,
Gerard,
maybe just some feedback on that.
yes, that's a good question. What we do in the industry and what we feel is compliant is that you'll have to get a service certificate from the company stating the amount of extinguishers or hydrants or hose reels serviced, and if they passed or not. A fire register can also be, what we do is we also supply a fire register. That's quite a detailed document stating, for instance, the location of the extinguisher, the type of extinguisher, the serial number of the extinguisher, the pressure test date, the next pressure test date, and if it passed or not. This is a very good record for the client, as well as I know that the insurance company has in the past has asked that in certain claims to form part of the investigation. And if the customer has all these in place, that's a very good defensive mechanism for them in a legal dispute or something. If anything happens, and they need to prove from their side that they were compliant. Yeah, I think that is basically it. And of course, very important, I'll handle it a bit later, is the service label that needs to be put on the equipment is extremely important. That is the first and the quickest way to see if equipment was serviced. That'll give the technician's number on that, as well as the service date and the next service date. That is a legal binding. I mean, if somebody, and that's mostly where we catch, or not we, where the industry catch out fly-by-nights, is if they use either names of companies that not in the industry, and if you see the name of that company, you can go into the website and search for them and see if they are accredited or not. That is basically the first step and the first investigative tool that a client and anyone doing investigation can use.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Stiffy, on your side, your hand is raised there.
Yeah, just one mention on the batteries. I think we need a lot more public awareness on these plug-and-play systems that now portable power packs that's being sold, and also about the pre-set-up inverter systems with chargers and battery and solar ready. I think a lot of those things are not stored correctly or used correctly, or there's not enough research done by the people to get the correct one for what they want to use it for. Also, the fact is that it's not well ventilated. People just put them in a corner and think it's going to cool down. It leads to overheating and also a major cause of fire. I've heard about Gizu, for instance, being recalled due to it being overheated and then starting fires. I think there's not enough public awareness around these things that people start understanding that this is also a hazard to their homes as well as businesses that's starting to use them instead of UPSs because they are cheaper. I think it's just a mention from my side.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, I think it's definitely a big issue. Can I just ask everyone just to make sure that your cameras are switched off, please, just for bandwidth reasons. Lib, I see your hand is raised as well before we continue to Marius.
Just a comment on what documents to be issued and all those stuff that Ben spoke about. On my documentation that I issue to the fire department, or the fire engineer's documentation issued to the fire department is normally and the old terminology it was a section 14 document. It's now called a form 4. But it's like a COC provided by the contractor to the fire engineer, and then the fire engineer issue his COC in aanhalingstekens to the fire department stating that everything is fine. So the documentation submitted or provided by the contractor is being submitted to the fire engineer, whereby that is being submitted to the council, forming part of your fire clearance certificate as well. So there's two ways in order to get this documentation. So yeah, I just wanted to note it so that everybody knows about it.
Thank you for that, Lib. Thank you very much for that. Right, Ben, I think we can, yeah, Marius can continue then. Thanks.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Gerard. Sorry. Just 1 second.
So Marius, I see both of you guys are muted now. Ben, are you guys still there?
Just 1 second, Gerard.
Okay, no problem. So what usually works is if you only activate the mic and the speaker of the computer that you're using and mute the mics and the speakers of the other computers in the area. That helps usually. Whilst we just waiting for Ben and Marius there, I think just a reminder from my side, please remember to just complete the training register. It's in the link in the chat. If you don't find it, please just just let us know, then we can repost it in the chat. But please make sure that you complete it and that everybody completes it. That because I know that there are some people that a couple of people sitting attending on one computer. So if we maybe can just ask everybody to complete the register so that we can just see who joined, and then obviously with the CPD points in mind as well.
Gerard, can you hear us now?
Clearly, yes, Morris.
Wonderful. We can start.
Thank you.
It happens when we have two laptops next to each other.
Yeah, no problem, no problem.
I was like, good morning, everybody. Yes, you've heard a lot about legislation and all sorts of why do I have to do this and where do we get to I must install X, Y, Z. As LEAP started right in the beginning, everything we do, there's legislation that dictates the minimum requirements. So before we start then, the building regulation is always our guideline. And we use 10400T, which tells us which building will have what type of smoke detection system. And then if we want to know exactly what type of smoke detection system we're going to install, we go to the next regulation, which is SANS 10139, which tells what occupancy will have what category of smoke detection system. And there it further defines what we're going to install per premises. Now, the beginning, obviously in South Africa, legislation for smoke detection was very vague and not really defined quite clearly. So that it leads to a lot of fires, especially on the commercial side and high-rise buildings. And Lip spoke about multiple fires that they attend to, and it happens daily, every day, where multiple story buildings catch fire. You don't lose necessarily the building, but the mayhem that it causes and loss of life and property is substantial. And especially our standards is being adopted from either EN standards or ISO standards. And especially in high-rise buildings, fire became an increasing risk for property and especially life as well. So there was SANS 10139 born, and there was amendments made in 2021, which affected South African market quite hugely. Why? Because it further defined what system we will install. Who can install these systems? Where are we going to install it? What type of category of system am I going to install? Like today with new solar systems, every guy is getting on the bandwagon and installing it. And we spoke about lithium batteries and the quality of equipment. So a couple of years down the line, 2 or 3 years, we're going to write a standards to try and curb all the events that happens, obviously, and try to sift the better installers from the not so great installers. And this is exactly what happened with the SANS regulation. So now to date in South Africa, if you want to install a smoke detection system in your property, you must use a specific type of company, a specific type of individual. They must be registered and they must prove in writing and certification that they can do this. And this is a big one for all the industries. Ben and as well as Lip talked about the industries that regulate South Africa's fire industry. And the questions that came from the audience so far is, how do I know that I've asked this person that is working on my premises, are you allowed to do what he's supposed to do? You are now aware that you can go to SHEQ's website, which is a click of a button. You go to the net and you can type in the individual's surname, his initials, and there it will populate the list of people that will obviously are worthy and do actually are registered to do the services that they offered. And even the companies, you can go search the companies on ASIP's website, on was it the Fires Installers Association's website. So the industry has got tools now to their disposal to make sure that if you invited a person, that they are actually worthy of doing what they're supposed to do.
Sorry, Marius. I don't know. Yeah, so the slide we're seeing now is the SANS update one.
Yeah, we're starting with the slides.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you.
I'm trying to give an introduction of where we are going to head with the conversation today. So SANS regulation, which I've briefly touched on, 10400T is the building regulations, which clearly dictates what smoke detection are we going to install for what category. I'm not going to read word for word the slide. In principle, I already explained what I'm going to talk about. And here is a category, a document that clearly defines if there was any doubt in anybody's mind, what are we going to install in any type of premises. Ben already showed a slide where we use occupancy as obviously our starting point. And 10400T gives us even a description of what the occupancy means. So if we talk about an A1, it's an entertainment and public assembly. And what are we supposed to install on the smoke detection side? And they clearly states in column 3, building of any size, to take an example. So let's start off entertainment and public assembly, occupancy classification, which would come from LEAP side as the person that already jotted down what is going to be required for the minimum requirements as with regards to the national legislation. And then if he dictates A1 occupancy, we as the installers and as well as the designers of these systems will take it the next step. And we'll tell you, you as a customer, you are only, for minimum requirements sake, you can install a manual system. A manual system, again, means there's no automatic means of activation. It would be required that an individual activate the system. Then the insurance will come part of the mix, and we always use the insurance because we sit around the table a lot with the insurance companies. And I said, but yes, the building regulations dictate that your premises, the minimum requirements must be a manual operated system, but we as the insurer feel that we need automatic detection as well, because your premises to us is a specific risk. And then we would take it further and then design a system around that. In the past, it wasn't clearly defined of what occupancy will have what specific type of system. And today now, there's no arguing about it. You have a minimum requirements, and we need to satisfy the minimum requirements. And this comes straight from SANS 10400T. We've copied it and just we didn't even change any of the wording. It's so clearly defined, and what I want to point out here at the bottom is even 4.31.2, where everybody in the past just now installed smoke detection, but now the regulation requires as well that you have an evacuation system as well. If your premises often has a specific occupancy and a specific size, you have to have a public address for evacuation purposes. And again, there's a regulation which clearly defines who, where, how many decibels down to the letter of how we're going to install it. Number 4.31.3, hospitals has got its own regulation. Server rooms, if you want to install a system for your server room, there's a regulation for that as well. What is the point that I'm trying to make is that 10400T now dictates clearly what we're going to install on the detection, suppression, as well as the public address side of things, which is a minimum requirements. There comes SANS 10139, sorry about that. SANS 10139 is the smoke detection regulation for South Africa, which dictates to installers in South Africa who are allowed to install, how you're supposed to install it, what type of equipment you're supposed to install where, etc., etc. So if you are a installer in South Africa, first things first, you have to be SHEQ registered, as Ben previously touched on the matter. And then we have obviously our Bible of how we're going to install it. And then the changes that I spoke about earlier, in 2021, due to all sorts of fires which wreaking havoc in different types of properties, there was huge amendments made to SANS 10139, and I've highlighted it the ones that influence the industry the most. And the first one is the need for smoke detection system. As Leap earlier explained, he rationalized some properties because we have to vary from the minimum requirements set forth by legislation. But a customer in his mind as well is doing exactly the same thing because he knows he's got only R5 available. And now the insurance expects of him to install a smoke detection system. How in heaven's name can he afford it? What is he going to do? What can he do to get around this obstacle? And all the legislation now clearly dictates there's a need for fire detection system. What property, what system, and will be installed by whom? So the first question, need for smoke detection system, it's clearly defined in all the regulation. And how do you want to know what must be installed in my property? Invite a company that was registered with all the necessary bodies, or ask a fire engineer because they normally have ties with the companies because we need to provide documentation back to the beginning. And then again, there's variations in every building. Controls and indicating equipment, detection zones, and I can that would be a topic for a next meeting, because to go into depth about every single item on my list would be to give you an explanation of why smoke detection is required. But the one I want to focus on today the most is the last two on my list. Measures to limit false alarms. And previously in South Africa, when a company installs a smoke detection system, they always failed. They always failed. 99.9% of smoke detection systems in South Africa fail. Because why? We don't really want to install a smoke detection system. I would tender, 10 companies will tender. I will take the cheapest tenderer. I have a vague idea, a bill of quantity of what I want to install. It's not clearly defined. And then we would accept the cheapest quotation. And this is where we failed already. The company that presented the cheapest quotation would have no idea of what SANS 10139 requires of us. They probably doesn't have registered designers. They don't even have installers that's accredited. And it gives a bad name to smoke detection as a whole, because now we're going to install a system and it's going to give you a false alarm every single day. The customer is going to switch off the system and say, it just doesn't work. I've wasted money on XYZ, but it serves no purpose. And then there's a fire, and then there's a reprimand of your claim because certain items wasn't in place. All smoke detection systems in South Africa, and this is why, again, if you as the customer wants to install a system because your fire engineer dictated, there must be a clear defined system on the table. We want XYZ, because a company that's worth their gold would have given you the best solution to measure, to limit false alarms. And then last but not the least is the inspection and the servicing of it. I know we've mentioned about generators and all sorts of other equipment that must be serviced. If you install the best system and you do not maintain it, again, everything that we try to achieve means nothing, because the day which we require the system to operate, there might be a line fault and certain devices might be offline. So inspection and servicing, and those two, for me, on changes on SANS 10139 was two of the biggest changes in South African legislation. If we contact the FSIP for a third-party inspection, this is one of the two items which I would focus on. What measures did the company put in place? What type of equipment did they supply you to make sure that your system works 100% when it's supposed to work? Do you have redundancy? The correct detector. I could give you a quotation for the most cost-effective system, but I'll tell you the rate of false alarms would be 80%. If you want a better equipment, the rate of false alarms would be 2. So this is the most important amendments to the regulation as far. There's so many questions in the industry, and FireQuip thought, like, let's put it in words and try to circulate it to make this process a little bit easier. And we can start off right at the beginning, and I already answered this question. Are smoke detectors, and I put the word detectors, are detectors required by South African legislation? Is it required by South African law? And the answer is yes. It's a legal requirement as per National Building Regulation, and where we start off at the beginning again, like 10400T. And it clearly defines what occupancy type of building that would require detection. And again, I put the consult the SHEQ registered designer for further assistance if you want a specific design done for your premises. Next question would be, can any person then install smoke detection system in South Africa? And the answer is no. And I'm not going to read through the whole long answer. We can distribute this documentation and then you can read it for yourself. But no, you cannot. And this part, let me just touch maybe briefly on it. When we sat in one of the meetings, SHEQ meetings, and saw the amount of individuals that was registered with SHEQ that can install smoke detection system. And we know the companies that are registered with all the suppliers in South Africa, that calculation does not compute at all. So again, ask for, like Ben already pointed out, the SHEQ registration. Can any person design a smoke detection system in South Africa? Again, the answer is no. You have to be registered and you must be able to provide a certificate when you've done so. Again, Leap spoke about all the documentation that is required. If Leap asks us to design a system for him, I must give that design certificate to him and he would put that design certificate with his documentation. If we install the system, I must give him an installation certificate as well, and as well as an acceptance certificate when we hand over that certificate. And that is not something that somebody made up. Again, that's legislation. Can any person service a smoke detection system? Again, no. Where do I get certificates for my smoke detection system? Again, only SHEQ registered technicians can provide legal certificates. What certificates do I need for a smoke detection system? New installations, design installation, commissioning, and acceptance certificate. So if you get only an installation certificate, you require a design, commissioning, and acceptance certificate. Scheduled maintenance, you need to have a certificate as well by this company that serves the system for you. Even if you do modifications to your system, you have to have a modification certificate. And here's one of the questions, like we've said, customers try to save money, and we understand why. We as a business are trying to save money as well, but there must be certain aspects where we draw the line and say, but you have to give this over to a professional, which are registered by all the bodies, which would take that responsibility. And can I use battery operated detectors for businesses, for commercial use? And the answer is no. I'm going to skip the rest of this, the questions. Again, we can send this. To everybody if they would like to use this information. I want to again just here touch on point 11. If I have a legally registered technician service my non-compliant smoke detection system, does it make my equipment compliant? No, it does not. Ben already spoke about who is SHEQ, so I don't want to touch on that again. And that's the end of my presentation. So just to in a nutshell, smoke detection is not a nice to have. It is something in South Africa that regulation dictates of every commercial businesses in South Africa. And there is a minimum requirement that you need to approve with. And if you need to install, installer needs to install it for you, they must have the qualifications as well as the documentation to back that up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marius. I think just to sort of second that one of the last comments you made, I think there needs to be understanding that if you have a smoke detection system in place, which is faulty or not compliant or whatever the case may be, it's very much the same as electrical COC. We can't expect the electrician who we get in to then issue a COC on the electrical installation which is not compliant. So there would have to be work done and obviously money spent to bring the system up to a compliance level so that the person or the competent person that's registered can then certify that system. And I think this is where a lot of I think just to bring it back to your point earlier, I think this is where a lot of companies and a lot of businesses learn hard lessons and actually loses and wastefully spend money on these systems, because if you don't do it right from the get-go, you are going to spend a huge amount of money further down the line. So it's very, very well worth it to make sure that the systems that you buy, the people that you use to implement these systems, design them, etc., you do spend the money, work it into your budget and so on to make it worth your while. Otherwise, it is going to cost you a lot more. So thanks for that.
Gerard, I see Stiffy ask a question regarding the FSIB. Individuals or companies that's registered which can install smoke detection equipment, you can rather visit the FDIA website as well as SHEQ. They do offer companies that are registered as well as individuals which you can use or come and do services for your company. So if you want to see companies that's accredited, use the FDIA's website. They invite the public as well to interact with them if they see something as well, if they want to report a company which is registered. So the fire industry now today, we love interaction with all, even with customer as well as inspection bodies, because that helps us to get the market in order and to do the right thing, and so that nobody wastes money on the wrong thing.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
All right, just continue. Can I continue, Gerard? Sorry.
Yes, of course.
Right.
Yes, I was just going to ask you.
I'm going to go swiftly through the last couple of pages. This already mentioned, visit SHEQ website. If you go to the website at SHEQ, I think this is always, this is the starting point. FDIA is not compulsory, it's voluntary, but it's a very good regulating body, but SHEQ is compulsory. So if you can go, you will see in the top the technician companies. If you've got a technician SHEQ number, you can put that in. So for instance, in the bottom, you'll see one of our technicians throughout, he's a level 4 commissioner in Bloemfontein, And just below that is a gas suppression commission service level 3. So this will give you a total layout of the accreditation of the technician and with which company he's registered with, to give you just that bit of assurance that you are using a legal company. This is, for instance, if you go to the FTI website, this is a list of companies that will throw more or less out. You can click on it and it'll give you a full explanation of the company and contact numbers, everything. If you're on the website, you are approved. All right. Stepping off that, Gerard, see we're running a little bit out of time. Just a quick thing that sometimes happen, and this is more based on customers that might be on the forum this morning, is inspection checklists, safety officers and reps. In services of any equipment may only be done by a accredited and competent technician, but inspections may be done by a competent person. So, for instance, if there's a competent safety officer at the client, he can go and do monthly inspections, more or less, to see, without tampering or doing any changes or modifications to the equipment, to see if the equipment are on a month-to-month basis, if there's any damages that can be reported to a servicing company to come and rectify. What sometimes happens is a company service in January, and the only time anyone sees the equipment again is the next year January, which is especially on bigger premises, is a big no-no. I recommend monthly inspections to be done. Yes, just more or less a list of, looking at the indicator and cleaning it and see if everything is outside, if it looks like everything is in order.
Ben, I think, sorry, just a remark here or comment. I think this is also a duty that sort of falls within the firefighters avenue that you appoint.
Yes, that's correct, Gerard. What companies also like to do is they like to appoint the servicing company as having the fire responsibility, which is, in my opinion, not fair, because we get there once a year, we service it, we walk away. The appointments companies like to give, you say, listen, you need to keep the equipment clear from obstruction and clean and stuff. But, I quickly amend that to say, listen, I am not on site all the time. Your safety officer, your fire team see the equipment every day. The responsibility must fall on them. But yeah, for the services, annual services, the responsibility will fall on the SANS 1475 company and technician. There's some more inspections on the fire hose reel. It's nice to have a checklist. Like for instance, on the mines, we use electronic methods to check it and mark it, and the registers are printed out for the company, but that's something else. Monthly inspections can also be done by a competent person in the company, just to see if there's any faults or fires or equipment damage. And please, especially on gas suppression systems, if the person is not knowledgeable and totally trained by the company that did the installation, please do not let them enter the premises or the area where it's installed, as they may cause a discharge, especially if they not know how to do bypasses or change it to manual. It's a very dangerous situation if they are not competent to do the inspections. And this will be done after the installation. The training will be done by the company on the specified persons nominated by the company. Marius, yes. Smoke detection systems to be serviced biannually every 6 months to prevent. We highly recommend that as well. There's so many things that can go wrong in a 12-month period. 6 monthly is the standard, and gas and suppression system is 3 monthly as per the standards.
There's just a hand raised by Stiffy there.
Yeah, sorry, Ben. One other thing I just want to ask: will this include ammonia sensors and as well, or does that fall in a different space?
Can you repeat
people
that,
use
Stiffy?
ammoniac.
Ammonium sensors.
Ammonium.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something else, Tiffy. This is another division. That's that's more on maintenance. But that can also be connected to the smoke detection system. That will, if there's any faults or fires, that in the bigger systems, like Sparta Foods or something like that, where it can be controlled by the smoke detection system. But I'll ask Marius to come in here.
Hi, Stiffy. I can just comment on that. What Ben is referring to is smoke detection systems. Your ammonium detection, that would be for a specific type of gas, but that needs to be calibrated as per the supplier's intervals and requirements. And I normally know it's between 3 to 6 months when you have specific gas detectors. Like Ben also pointed out, if the functionality of that equipment must also be integrated to the smoke detection system, it can be, then that will naturally also be serviced by the bigger system. So for the smoke detection and suppression side, they must be serviced, like Ben said, 3 and 6 monthly. But on your side, your specific equipment, that must be done as per the supplier's requirements.
Okay, it's just a quick explanation of how the intervals and inspections are done. I'm not going to go through that. Leave this. Okay, training, just quickly. The type of training that you would expect from a firefighting supplier company is basic firefighting training, fire marshal training, advanced firefighting training. Basic firefighting training, we always recommend that everyone in the company goes through that. So, we do it as a 4-hour training, accredited with certification, so that everyone knows how it works. Because you always think you've got a fire team and appointed firefighting guys, and they might be away on something else, and there's a fire, and no one knows how everything works. So that is it's a very good introduction training to the use of firefighting equipment and which equipment to use on which fires. Fire marshal and advanced firefighting training is much more intense, and it's about a three-day course, especially advanced firefighting training. And these guys can use a little bit more equipment. They can use a lay flat hose. They can sort of fight a fire from outside, and Leap can come in here if he wants to, but they are not accredited to go into and do a rescue of people if they are not trained for that. That's for the fire department, and that's where people normally make a mistake. They think if the guys do the advanced firefighting training and they buy them a BA set and a tunic set, they are accredited and trained to rescue people, and that's normally a big mistake. Leap, I don't know if you want to say something about that.
That's 100% correct. Fire department is trained in worst case scenarios, which is much more intensive than a normal building or something on fire that can extinguish it with a fire hose or something else. So yeah, let's keep firefighting for fire department and basics for basics.
Thank you. Science requirements, that was also touched by Leap, and he gave you examples of the type of science in the industry. Basically, it comes down to that. Ask your firefighting company, are your signs approved? Are they SANS approved? And then, especially on new installations, the fire plan or the fire installation drawing will have a location of the signs and the type of signs and the equipment that's easy to install. The firefighting company must just comply with that. Yeah, I think there's a lot of benefits in having that, and this was explained by Leap in detail. This is to save lives and for safe escape. That's basically the main precaution, and for where and location of firefighting equipment, especially if there's fire, smoke, and electricity is off, so you know where your equipment are. Yeah, and that's basically it. Gerard, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. So yeah, I think are there any final questions? We've got about 5 minutes or so to go. I see there are a few people dropping off already, obviously heading into next meetings. But I also want to extend the opportunity that if there are questions that you think of or that arise after the session, please don't hesitate to email Annelien and Agbiz as well, and we can deal with it through the SHEQ forum as well, and come back to you on that basis. So I don't know, are there any last questions or comments?
Gerard, from my side, thanks again for everything. But should anybody wants to give me a call outside this forum, they're more than welcome. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, doesn't matter. If you've got my number, you can send my details to them, it's fine.
Fantastic. Yeah. So what we're going to do is just to conclude as well, I think the presentations will be made available as per the previous workshops as well, and also the contact details of FireQuip and LDS as well. So you guys will have access to that. But I think from my side, thank you very, very much once again. Lib, on your side, Ben and Marius on your side, thank you very much for all the preparation. I think it's a lot of information. Usually these workshops are, but I really enjoyed the interaction today. There was a lot of interaction. There were a lot of questions, a lot of aspects that were brought in, and I think that is the purpose at the end of the day of these workshops. So yeah, I think from our side, thank you very, very much, much appreciated. And yeah, like I said, if there are any questions afterwards that you think of, please don't hesitate to ask. We're also going to make the recording available afterwards, so Annelien will do that for us. Stiffy, I saw your hand was raised briefly. I don't know if there was a question or...
No, I'm fine. Thanks a lot.
Okay. All right. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Annelies, your hand is raised there.
Yeah, Gerard, just a word in closing. Wessel also asked me because he had to drop off. Just thanks from Agbiz and Agbiz Grain side as well to yourself for putting this together, to the presentation presenters for a very informative workshop, and to everybody who took the time out to attend this.
Thank you, Annelies. Yeah, that's great. I must say I'm excited for everybody joining as well, and I really hope that